As group fitness instructors, we need a way to monitor the intensity of the individuals exercising in our class. For years, we've used heart rate formulas to try to predict the maximum heart rate that our individuals can work to. We've had those charts in the back of the studio where people are supposed to find their heart rate during class, but really that information is kind of incomplete. So instead of using a heart rate formula to predict how hard we're working, American Council on Exercise is recommending using specific metabolic markers. The first metabolic marker, the first ventilatory threshold, is where the body transitions from using free fatty acids or fats to carbohydrates for fuel. We can monitor this or measure this by an individual's ability to talk. That's why it's called the talk test. Below the first ventilatory threshold, participants, people doing exercise, can talk comfortably or talk relatively normally. As they approach the first ventilatory threshold, talking becomes more challenging. It doesn't become difficult, but it becomes harder to have a conversation. Above the first ventilatory threshold, instead of being able to say complete sentences, an individual can only say a couple words or a short phrase. The second metabolic marker, the second ventilatory threshold, is where we get an accumulation of blood lactate in our bloodstream. We're working at such a high intensity that our body needs energy so quickly, we can barely utter a single word. So if we use those metabolic markers below the first ventilatory threshold, participants in your class can answer a question in a complete sentence. Above the first ventilatory threshold, they can maybe answer a question in a couple words. As they approach the second ventilatory threshold, and they're working at such a high intensity, instead of saying a couple words, they can maybe say one word or just give you an acknowledgement with a grunt or a nod or just like a bare little smile. So what we're going to do today is demonstrate that. We have two different individuals who are going to do two different types of exercise we might see in class. Talia here is going to be demonstrating going from walking to explosive work. And we have Jovia here who's going to start in a high plank and progress up to a burpee. So right now, at the intensity they're working at, and you might see these drills in a regular exercise class, a circuit class, a conditioning class. Right now, they're working below the first ventilatory threshold, meaning it's very easy for them to breathe. And how are you feeling today, Talia?
Really good.
Are you feeling pretty good?
Yes.
Do you think you can keep this going all day long?
All day.
See, we could have a conversation here, and it'd be very easy for her. How are you feeling down there, Jovia? All right?
Awesome.
Do you think you could hold that for a while?
Yes.
Now, she might fatigue muscularly, but energetically, she can do that. Now, if Talia starts picking up the pace and starts running in place, and Jovia starts coming up to a standing position, and then going back down to a high plank position, so if she goes through these motions, and now they're working a little bit harder. If they maintain this intensity for a little bit of time, what's going to happen is their body is going to need oxygen, so their breathing is going to get quicker, and their breathing volume is going to expand and get bigger. So that means they're not going to be able to talk as efficiently. So how are you doing right now, Talia?
Good.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, see, she's going to answer in just a short word. How are you doing, Jovia? All right?
Good.
Do you think you can hold this for a long time?
Yes.
See, it's getting a little bit more difficult. Now, if they increase the intensity now, she's going to skip. So skip in place. Now you're doing full-on burpees. That's it, explode up. That's it. So you can see as their intensity level comes up, as their energy level comes up, as they get more explosive. How are you feeling, Talia? How are you feeling, Jovi?
Good.
See, it becomes harder for them to answer. And relax, guys. You guys did awesome. So when you start approaching that second ventilatory threshold, or your group participants start approaching that second ventilatory threshold, what happens is the body's demand for oxygen becomes so great, you can barely say a single word or a single phrase. That's how we can monitor our participants' intensity in your group exercise class. Yes, you can still try to estimate max heart rate if you want to, but really we want to be able to watch their ventilatory thresholds because that's how their body's metabolizing fuel for muscle contractions. When they're breathing comfortably, they can talk to you normally, they're below VT1. When talking becomes a little bit difficult, they're above VT1, and we need to watch the duration for how long the participants are staying at that intensity. When you're working at a really high intensity, when you're pushing that class to the hardest, you want them to really work hard, really pay attention to participants. Because if they get fatigued, form's going to break down and the risk of injury increases. That's why when your participants can only answer with a single word or a single phrase or can barely answer at all, we need to be really careful and watch how long we're going to keep them at that intensity before we allow them to stop, allow them to recover, and have an active recovery interval. Once you allow them an active recovery interval, they can get new oxygen into their system and get rid of carbon dioxide, get rid of other metabolic waste. Then they're refueled, recharged, and ready for another high-intensity interval. So all we need to do to monitor exercise intensity in our group classes is be able to engage our participants, be able to have that conversation with them, and watch how they answer. Because the less words they answer with, the harder they're working, and we need to be able to monitor that. You'll find that once you become comfortable using the talk test, it's a very effective tool for measuring exercise intensity in any group fitness format.